This presentation is going to explore the effect of BLUP on GP gains. It's relatively commonly known how the BLUP affects the inborn skills of a foal, but it's quite widely argued and there's a lot of misinterpreted information out there as to how it actually affects the GP gains. A lot of people out there are under the impression, after doing their own tests, that anything over 70 will have no extra benefit to the GP gain of the foal. Other people say that it was recently changed, in some cases, to 75, and other people still are under the impression that all the way to 100 to get the maximum GP gain. Now, luckily for the 100 people, they are correct. There is a benefit to going to 100. Even 99 is not going to give you the full benefit. Now, I'm going to explain why, and to do that, I'm going to draw a number line. Now, this number line is going to represent all of the different BLUP values that you can possibly have. Now, as we know, the minimum BLUP you can have is negative 100, the maximum BLUP you can have is 100. Together, there are 200 points of BLUP. So if we draw in some other values for BLUP here, we can put in negative 50, which would be 1/4 of the maximum BLUP points we get, because remember, we've got 200 BLUP points. So 1/4, better known as 25%. Now, 0 BLUP being halfway is 50% of the maximum BLUP that we can have. And if we have positive 50 BLUP, that would be 3/4 of the maximum BLUP, which would be 75%. Now, if I squeeze in here, if I squeeze in 70 BLUP, as we discussed earlier, that is, if we work it out, that is those first 100 BLUP points of the negatives, plus 70 of the positive BLUP points, which add up together to be 170 out of 200 BLUP points. Now, to get a percentage, we have to get the percentage out of 100, so we have to divide this by 2. So 170 divided by 2 is equal to 85%. So 70 BLUP is 85% of the maximum BLUP that you can attain. Now, if you think about inborn skills and how the calculation for inborn skills actually relates to this calculation, this concept here, anything that is less than 0 for the BLUP is not going to have any effect on the inborn skills. In terms of, if both parents average out to have a BLUP of less than 0, you're not going to get any innate skills in the foals. To get innate skills in the foals, you need a positive BLUP above 0 as the average BLUP of the parents. So it's only this part of the number line that is taken into account for inborn skills. However, with GP gain, I propose that the entire number line is taken into account. This is because there is an automatic GP gain since 2011 or thereabouts, 2012, and this essentially means that any amount of positive BLUP, even if it is negative, will still give you a bit of a GP gain. So we can create a formula from this number line, and the formula will look like this. First things first, you take the average BLUP of the parents. Now, if you don't know how to calculate the average BLUP, you just take the BLUP of parent A plus the BLUP of parent B and divide it by 2. So if you've got 2 horses, one of whom has a BLUP of 60 and the other one has a BLUP of 80, the average BLUP between them would be 70, which is, and I worked this out by simply 80 plus 60 divided by 2. 80 plus 60 being 140. So, back to our formula here. The average BLUP of the parents. Now we're going to add 100 to this because remember there's 200 points of BLUP and we don't want to work with negatives, so we actually want to get a number that is the average BLUP in the range between 0 and 200. So we know how much that BLUP is out of those 200 BLUP points. Now, whatever value this gives, we want to divide it by 2. So let's use some examples here. We'll use this example here where we've got the average BLUP of 70 of these 2 horses. Now, using this equation here, we can say 70 plus 100, which is equal to 170, and then we divide it by 2. So 170 divided by 2 gives us our 85% as shown earlier. So, you might be asking, so what happens if you have 2 horses that are negative 100 BLUP? A friend and I jumped on a server that we didn't already have accounts on and made some accounts and did the tutorial. Now, the only horses that I've come across that actually have negative 100 BLUP and can breed are those foundations, those immortal foundations that you get at the beginning of the game during the tutorial that you're meant to breed with your primary foundation. So for some reason, for whatever reason, they are 3 years old and they have negative 100 BLUP, which is unusual because normally by aging a horse you increase its BLUP slightly, and by 3 years it would be negative 87 or something around then, which would give you a GP gain. But for whatever reason, these foundations that have 350 GP, and I'll get to that why in a minute, they had negative 100 BLUP. So a friend and I, with 2 different accounts, 1 account each, bred these 2 horses together, these 2 negative 100 BLUP horses together. Now each horse, as I said, had 350 GP. So according to my formula, that would mean, let's use the formula first. We could say that if the average BLUP of the parents is negative 100, we're adding 100 to that, and then dividing by 2. Now, negative 100 plus 100, that's just 0. So we're going 0 divided by 2. Now, 0 divided by 2 is 0. 0 divided by anything is 0, more or less. And so what we can basically say is that 0% of the maximum GP gain will be achieved. That's exactly what we found. The foal of these 2 horses had exactly 350.00 GP. And we thought, okay, just in case there was a bit of random variance there, let's do it again. So we did it again. We restarted the accounts and did it again, and we got another horse that had exactly 350.00 GP. So a lot of people might be contesting my formula and saying, look, I've done my own tests and this isn't the results that I've reached. I saw that BLUP of 70 gave the same GP gains as BLUP of 100. Now there is a reason for that, and the reason for that is random variance. Now the random variance in this case is in the GP gains. So let's just say that for any particular GP, you have an average GP gain of 10. You breed 100 horses together and have 500 foals, which is ridiculous, but hear me out, and the maximum GP gain you could get by having 100 BLUP, and the average GP gain turned out to be plus 10. Now, there's still some random variance. Some of the horses you've got might have only had 7 GP, and others might have had 13 GP, because at a 10 GP average GP gain, there's about a plus or minus more or less 3 GP, according to a different calculation that I will go through in another video. So you could get anywhere from 7 GP to 13 GP. So let's just say that you have 2 sets of horses. One set of horses has 70 BLUP. The other set of horses has 100 BLUP. And let's just say that you bred the 2 70 BLUP horses together and you had good luck. You had good luck and the GP gain you got was 11 GP. Now let's say you bred the 2 100 BLUP horses together and let's just say that you had bad luck. You only got 9 GP. Now, this isn't actually the GP what you probably got, because remember, we've got to multiply by that 85%. So 85% of 11 is more or less equal to 9.4 GP. So if that would have been some bad luck so that would have been some good luck at 100 BLUP. That's still good luck for 70 BLUP, because look, this 9.4 is still higher than what you got at 100 BLUP. So it's a bit of a bad way of explaining it, but essentially the random variance can actually mess with your calculations, and unless you test it with hundreds of horses to work out a very close approximation of what the average GP gain is going to be, then your results may be skewed by good or bad luck, and it may be very, very, very difficult to actually see the difference between 70 and 100 BLUP, because remember, 70 BLUP is 85%, and that little 15% for if you've got very low GP gains, it's going to be really hard to notice that. And that's why a lot of people, especially in the GP race at high GPs, assume that there is no difference. I mean, there is, but again, this comes up to the final thing of the final consideration. There are, well, I like to draw this in a triangle. You've got the GP gains is one consideration when you're breeding things. Another consideration is aging points or Morpheus arms or various other breeding resources that you need to breed horses. and then the other one is time. So if you are short on time, then you're probably going to not get to 100 BLUP. And hopefully you've got the aging points to get to some value, but essentially what I'm saying is you have to work it out in a way that I can explain with a number line. Again, number lines. So this is our number line. And essentially what I'm saying is, if you want to get to a BLUP of 70, you need to work out how long does it take? How long does it take to get to a BLUP of 70? Now let's just say for this example that to get all the way to 70 it takes 30 minutes. And let's also say that to get from 70 to 100 also takes 30 minutes. Because, you know, getting those competition wins can be a bit difficult and it can take a bit of extra time. So remember, what you're asking yourself is it really worth getting to 100? Because you got to 85% in 30 minutes, and you know, then you're only getting another 15% after another 30 minutes. And if you're in a GP race and you need to get the GP as high as possible, and you might have limited time or limited aging points, then really it's better to only get to 70 BLUP and get this 85%. Because if you can get to that 85% really quickly, then you can get onto the next horse and do it really, really quickly. So it's worth it in some cases to BLUP to less than 100 if you're going for GP gains. There are some teams that only bowled everything at 7 years, which gives them a BLUP of about 58, which would more or less give them, you know, about a 79% of the maximum GP gain they could get. And if they can reach 58 BLUP in 10 or 15 minutes, and they can then do several horses per hour, then they're going to be better off than the people that are spending an hour to BLUP to 100. So essentially, I urge you to make your own considerations here. Work out if you're limited on resources, if you're limited on time, if you have to meet certain deadlines, if you're against another team. You need to figure out, you know, how long does it take you to get to a certain BLUP, and then how long does it take you to get the rest of the way. And using this entire number line, noticing that 70 BLUP is actually 85%, not 70%, will help you work out and sort of do your own intuition as to what would be most worth it for your team. Now, as I said, inborn skills are based off of only this, and of course, you know, if you're only at 90 BLUP, the inborn skills are definitely going to take a hit. So, you know, only BLUP to less than 100 if you're in a GP race or if you're going for GP. Now, I hope this video has been informative. I will be making more videos of this nature about various other mechanics, and I hope this maybe settles some arguments, or perhaps it's going to cause more arguments, unfortunately. But this is the intuition and mathematics to how the BLUP is most likely to work, and it seems to have been shown to work that way, and it's the most intuitive and whatever formula that I've been able to come up with. So I hope it was an instructional video, and I hope it is of some use to you. This is the Howrse method, signing off.